Welcome, deep divers. Today we're taking a deep dive into, well, one of humanity's biggest quests, happiness. What is it, really? How do we understand it, chase it, maybe even measure it? And what surprising truths might pop up along the way? We've gathered a pretty rich collection of sources, everything from ancient philosophy to modern psychology, even economics, to really try and unpack this multifaceted emotion.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
everyone talks about happiness, but actually pinning down a definition or quantifying it, understanding its real impact, that can be surprisingly tricky.
Yeah.
We're about to explore quite a journey looking at, well, everything from deep philosophical ideas to the latest in genetic research and psychological insights.
Okay, so let's start right there. The big question. How do we even begin to define something so broad, so personal as happiness? I mean, what are we even talking about when we use that word?
That's a really crucial starting point because the word happiness itself, well, it's subject to a lot of debate, isn't it, about usage, meaning, and there are significant cultural differences too. But essentially, most definitions, they kind of boil down to two main ideas. One is the current immediate experience of emotion. What Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman calls what I experience here and now.
Like feeling good right this second.
Exactly. Think of it as that fleeting feeling, pleasure, joy, contentment, the sort of thing you might find in a dictionary definition. But the other idea is, well, it's a broader appraisal of life satisfaction, like Ruth Veenhoven defines it. Overall appreciation of one's life as a whole.
Ah, okay, so more like stepping back and thinking, yeah, overall things are good.
Precisely. And Kahneman points out that this broader life satisfaction, that's often what people truly value more than just the current emotional hit.
Yeah.
So it's not just about feeling good right now,
Right.
but about feeling good about your life as a whole.
That makes so much sense. It's like the difference between, say, enjoying a really delicious meal in the moment versus feeling generally satisfied with your diet over the last month or something.
Good analogy.
And some definitions even try to, combine both, don't they? I think Sanja Lubomirski's description does that. It mentions the experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile.
Exactly. Trying to capture both the feeling and the evaluation.
And then you have that ancient Greek term, eudaimonia. We often translate it as happiness, but you're saying it's really closer to welfare or flourishing.
That's a much better translation, yes.
Sure.
Flourishing.
Yeah.
And Xavier Landis even suggests including subjective well-being, mood, and eudaimonia for a really comprehensive picture.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. These different ways of looking at it, they actually give different results when you try to measure them, right?
They absolutely.
Like the Nordic countries, they always score highest on those subjective well-being surveys, that broader life satisfaction thing.
Right.
But then if you look at surveys based purely on current positive feelings, daily joy, it's South American countries that often come out on top.
That's a perfect example. It shows how happiness is really a polysemy, a word with multiple meanings and, frankly, quite a fuzzy concept.
Fuzzy, yeah.
It also highlights that how you judge your happiness in the moment might actually be different from how you remember that feeling later on. Yet, despite all these complexities, people keep using the word, largely because it has this incredible convening power. It brings people together to talk about what really matters.
So thinking about all these different angles, what stands out to you listening right now? For me, it's how much the context changes the meaning and how different cultures might prioritize one kind of happiness without even maybe realizing it.
Absolutely. It really depends on the lens you're using. And to add another layer here, the German philosopher Michaela Summa draws a neat distinction between joy and happiness.
Oh, okay.
She says joy sort of accompanies a process. It's tied very closely to the present moment. Direct emotional response. Think of the joy of creating something or just enjoying a sunny day.
Yeah, immediate.
Right. Happiness, on the other hand, she argues, is more tied to the moment of achievement. And it implies an evaluative stance, looking back over a period of time or even your whole life. It's broader, more reflective.
Like the feeling after finishing a big project, looking back at the whole thing.
Exactly that kind of feeling, a sense of satisfaction about the whole journey.
Okay, so if happiness is this personal, fluid, multifaceted thing we've just discussed, what does that mean for actually measuring it? I mean, people have tried to quantify this stuff for centuries, haven't they?
They certainly have.
Yeah.
Way back in 1780, Jeremy Bentham, the utilitarian philosopher, he actually proposed that since happiness was the main goal for humans, it should be measured. like as a governmental performance metric.
Wow, really? Like judging governments on citizen happiness?
Talk about accountability.
Yeah.
Today, though, it's typically measured using self-report surveys, people rating their own feelings.
Which sounds straightforward, maybe, but I imagine it's got its own set of challenges. Like, how accurately can we really report our own happiness?
You're spot on. While these surveys are common, they are definitely prone to cognitive biases. For example, there's the peak end rule.
Right, where you remember the most intense part in the end, not the whole thing.
Exactly. So a bad ending can really sour the memory of an otherwise okay experience. Plus, studies show our memories of how we actually felt can be inaccurate. And this research on affective forecasting, well, it shows we're surprisingly bad at predicting our future emotions, including how happy we'll be.
Huh. We think we know, but we don't really.
It's tricky to capture accurately, for sure.
But despite those hurdles, researchers have developed some pretty clever scales to try and get a handle on this elusive feeling. Can you walk us through a couple of the main ones?
Absolutely. One that's widely used is the Satisfaction with Life Scale, or SWLS. It's a global assessment, quite short, just 5 statements.
Okay.
You rate your agreement with things like, in most ways, my life is close to my ideal, or I am satisfied with my life. It's really aiming for that broader reflective evaluation we talked about.
Got it. That big picture view.
Then there's the Positive and Negative Effect Schedule, PANS. That's a bit different. It's a 20-item questionnaire looking at positive and negative emotions over different time frames like this moment, today, the past week, etc.
So more about the feelings themselves.
Exactly. It lists specific emotions, interested, distressed, excited, scared, and you rate how much you felt each one. This one really tries to capture those immediate, effect-based feelings.
Okay.
And for a simpler, maybe more visual approach, there's the Cantrell ladder method. The World Happiness Report uses this one. You imagine a ladder from 0 to 10, where the top is the best possible life for you, and the bottom is the worst. Then you just say which step you feel you're on right now.
Oh, I like that. It feels quite intuitive.
It is a very direct way to get that global life evaluation.
So these sound like quite different tools getting at different facets of happiness. And I guess these scales aren't just for like academic studies on individuals. They feed into bigger things too.
It's exactly right. Building on measures like these, you have the World Happiness Report, published every year since 2012. And it specifically differentiates between those cognitive life evaluations, like the ladder, and the emotional reports, like PANAS.
Right.
And it's worth noting the UK actually started measuring national well-being back in 2012, too. They were following the lead of Bhutan, which famously has been measuring gross national happiness for decades.
Yeah, G&H instead of GMP.
Right. It signals this growing global recognition that well-being isn't just about GDP or economic stuff. Now you have academic economists, international organizations really pushing for these multi-dimensional dashboards. Yeah, combining subjective measures like surveys with objective indicators, things like fairness, autonomy, community ties, engagement, looking at the whole picture of human well-being.
That makes sense.
And maybe surprisingly for individuals, happiness, once measured, tends to be quite stable over time, despite, all the ups and downs life throws at us.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty now. How much of our happiness is actually like baked into our DNA? Is there a happiness gene?
The genetics question. That's a fascinating and a very active area of research. There's work being done at the Li Kung-Shung Center at Harvard, for instance. Some research has suggested a possible link between the volume of gray matter in a specific brain area, the right precuneus and subjective happiness scores.
Interesting, like a physical correlate in the brain.
Potentially, yes. And the psychologist Sonja Lyubomirsky, she offered this well-known estimation. Maybe 50% of our happiness level is genetically determined, 10% by life circumstances, and the remaining 40% is actually subject to our own self-control, our choices and actions.
50% genetic, that sounds like a lot.
It does, but it's important to understand the nuance here. Genes might give you a predisposition, increase the likelihood of certain tendencies, but they don't, 100% lock in your behavior or your happiness level.
Wait, not destiny.
Not destiny. And honestly, the research isn't entirely conclusive. There are conflating studies. Some couldn't find a link with specific genes like SLC6A4, while others find genetics really key. Heritability estimates, well, they range quite widely, sometimes as low as 12–18%, sometimes much higher, but often settling somewhere in the 20–50% range. So yes, biology plays a part, but it's definitely not the whole story.
Okay. So if it's not all genes and only partly circumstances, what else actually causes happiness? Is it just about, like, encountering unexpected good things or seeing someone you love or getting praise?
Well, those things can certainly trigger positive emotions, absolutely, little bursts of joy. But the broader research in positive psychology, well-being, eudaimonia,
Yeah.
it covers a huge spectrum. Biological factors, personal traits, relationships, institutions, culture, even global dimensions.
Wow, okay.
For instance, the Harvard study of adult development, the one that's tracked people for over 80 years,
Yeah, incredible study.
they found consistently that the happiest and healthiest individuals reported having strong interpersonal relationships. That kept coming up. This and other research really highlights that things like adequate sleep, good mental health, and strong relationships often contribute more to happiness than income does.
More than money.
Often, yes, especially beyond a certain basic level. That's a core idea you hear about in, say, Laurie R. Santos' really popular Yale course, Psychology and the Good Life.
Right, so relationships, health, what else?
Well, this brings us back to that key distinction between two historical ways of thinking about happiness. There's the hedonistic tradition, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, that immediate good feeling. And then there's the eudaimonic tradition. That's more about living life in a full, deeply satisfying way, often through purpose, meaning, growth, even if it involves facing challenges.
Okay, pleasure versus meaning, basically.
Kind of. And interestingly, Kahneman suggests that people are often more driven by the search for satisfaction in life, that deeper meaning, that eudaimonic sense, than just the search for happiness as a fleeting emotion.
That distinction, fleeting pleasure versus deeper satisfaction, that really resonates. It makes me think of Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the concentration camp.
Exactly. A powerful example.
He observed that those who found some kind of meaning, even in those absolutely horrific circumstances, they were the ones who held on to life, while those who lost hope, well, they often died quickly.
Absolutely. Frankl believed that joy and misery had more to do with a person's perspective, their choice of attitude, than their actual surroundings. He pointed to three key sources of meaning. First, creating important work or doing deeds. Second, deeply encountering another person or experience through love. And third, finding meaning even in unavoidable suffering, seeing it as a sacrifice perhaps, or a chance to grow.
Finding meaning in suffering itself. Wow.
Yeah. And psychologist Robert Emmons' research really aligns with this. He talks about the centrality of goals and meaningful projects in our lives. He found that when people pursue these things, often without focusing primarily on becoming happy, happiness often emerges as a kind of byproduct.
So don't chase happiness directly, chase meaning.
That's one implication, yes. Emmons uses this acronym, WIST, to frame it. Work, meaningful engagement, intimacy, deep connections, spirituality, connecting to something larger, and transcendence, experiences beyond the self. These are areas where we can find that deep engagement and purpose.
WIST. Okay. And here's something else that's really interesting. Our views of happiness and what brings it, they actually seem to change throughout our lives.
Oh, definitely.
Like in early adulthood, maybe the focus is more on friends, stuff, money. Then middle age, it shifts towards maybe money and relationships still, but maybe differently. And then in older adulthood, people often prioritize personal peace and lasting relationships above all else. It's quite an arc.
It truly is. And the philosopher Antti Kauppinen, he links this shift to how we perceive time. Early adults see this whole life stretching ahead, full of possibilities. Middle-aged adults, they see life both behind and ahead. And older adults often see most of their life behind them. This changing perspective really influences what we pursue for happiness.
That makes a lot of sense. How you see time shapes your goals.
Exactly. And these insights also connect to various self-fulfillment theories. Think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Climbing that pyramid towards self-actualization brings deep satisfaction. Beyond just meeting basic needs, Maslow talked about peak experiences, those profound moments of love, understanding, maybe even rapture, where you feel incredibly alive and whole.
Right, peak experiences.
It's similar in a way to Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow.
Ah, flow, being totally absorbed in something.
Exactly, getting so engrossed in a challenging task, playing music, solving a problem, coding, whatever, that you completely lose track of time. That state promotes really deep positive emotions.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And Eric Fromm, he defined happiness as the productive realization of his potentialities. Basically, by using your energy productively, you increase your powers, your capabilities, and find joy in that growth.
Okay.
Then you have self-determination theory, which is quite influential.
Right.
It links our intrinsic motivation, doing things because we want to, three basic psychological needs. Competence, feeling effective at what we do, autonomy, having choice and feeling in control, and relatedness, feeling connected to others. When these needs are met, people tend to flourish.
Competence, autonomy, relatedness. Okay.
And Ronald Inglehart's research found that the amount of free choice a society allows its citizens has a major impact on happiness levels, especially once basic survival needs are met. Freedom matters.
But not everyone's so optimistic, right? What about Freud?
Freud. Yes, he offered a more, shall we say, pessimistic view. He suggested that humans are kind of restricted in achieving constant happiness. Why? Because we derive intense enjoyment mainly from contrast, like feeling warm after being cold or relief after anxiety, and very little from a steady state of contentment. He thought the possibilities for happiness were inherently limited.
So we need the lows to appreciate the highs.
That was part of his thinking, yes.
Yeah.
And related to that is the whole idea of motivational hedonism, the philosophical view that pleasure is ultimately the main aim of human life.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit now. Let's talk about actionable strategies and maybe some surprising research findings. Since about 2000, there's been this huge boom in positive psychology. It focuses specifically on human flourishing, not just fixing what's wrong. What are its core ideas?
Positive psychology has really blossomed, yeah. Its core ideas revolve around identifying and cultivating human strengths and virtues. They've outlined 6 key virtues that seem universal, things like wisdom and knowledge, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. The thinking is that understanding and using your signature strengths derived from these virtues can lead to greater well-being and happiness. And this field has spurred the development of numerous short-term self-help interventions. Things like gratitude journals or acts of kindness that have actually been shown in studies to improve happiness levels.
Practical stuff people can do.
Exactly. And someone like Emma Sepoli at Yale, she emphasizes the importance of balancing compassion for others. Service, volunteering, connecting with self-compassion. Taking care of yourself allows you to better care for others, and both contribute to well-being.
Okay, let's unpack this now with a really fascinating finding. This comes from the Framingham Heart Study, a long-term project. They found this amazing spillover effect of happiness.
Yes, the network effect.
Right. They found that your happiness can actually be affected by a friend who's 3 degrees of separation away from you. So your friend's friend's friend.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. The study showed specifically that if a friend who lives within a mile of you becomes happy, it increases your probability of being happy by like 25%.
That's a huge effect. It shows just how interconnected we are, often in ways we don't even realize. Our social networks literally shape our emotional landscape.
It's mind-blowing.
And this kind of connects to what are sometimes called indirect approaches to happiness. Some thinkers, like Albert Camus or Eckhart Tolle, have suggested that the very act of consciously searching for happiness might actually be incompatible with being happy.
Like trying too hard ruins it.
Kind of. Along similar lines, John Stuart Mill, the utilitarian we mentioned earlier, he believed that for most people, happiness isn't something you achieve by aiming directly for it. He thought it was best achieved en passant, sort of indirectly.
How so?
By focusing your energy on some external purpose, helping others, pursuing a creative passion, working towards a goal you care about. Mills suggested that if you concentrate on something else, you'll inhale happiness with the air you breathe. It just happens as a byproduct.
Huh. So stop trying so hard to be happy and just get engaged in life.
That's the idea. Yeah. An interesting perspective, right? And some observers, like William Inge or Swett Martin, noted that some people just seem to be born happy, or that the happiest people often have no particular cause for being happy except the fact that they are so. Maybe for some it's less about pursuit and more about disposition.
And on a more, maybe, therapeutic level, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, that's widely used now to help change habits and promote happiness, right? How does that work for someone wanting to feel happier?
Right. CBT is very practical. It helps people identify and then reframe problematic thought patterns and behaviors that might be contributing to unhappiness or anxiety. It involves techniques like maybe role-playing new ways to handle situations, learning beneficial coping skills, finding new activities that support more positive feelings and actions. It's really about consciously changing those mental habits.
Training your brain, in a way.
In a way, yes. Reshaping those automatic negative thoughts.
And Daniel Gilbert, the Harvard psychologist, he came up with this really interesting concept, synthetic happiness. What's that about?
Yeah, synthetic happiness. Gilbert argues that we all have this kind of psychological immune system. It helps us regulate our emotions and, crucially, allows us to make happiness for ourselves even when things don't go exactly as planned.
Make happiness? How?
He contends we're surprisingly good at finding the silver lining, or reframing situations to feel okay, even content, when we don't get what we initially thought we wanted. Like if you didn't get the job you aimed for, you might convince yourself the other job you got is actually better for you in the long run.
Okay. Like rationalizing, but in a good way.
Kind of. His research suggests that this synthetic happiness, the happiness we create, can be just as real and enduring as natural happiness, the kind we feel when we get exactly what we wanted. It suggests personal happiness is largely based on perception, how we frame things. It reframes happiness less as a destination you arrive at and more as a journey of perception and adaptation.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've talked about what happiness is, how to measure it, what influences it, how to pursue it, maybe directly or indirectly. Now, what does happiness actually do for us? And maybe controversially, is there such a thing as too much happiness?
Right. Well, first off, researchers generally consider happiness measures quite reliable. Why? Because studies consistently show that people who report being happy also tend to exhibit behaviors we associate with happiness. They smile more, they're rated as happier by friends and family, they're more sociable, more helpful, and significantly, they're less likely to commit suicide. So the self-reports align pretty well with observable outcomes.
Okay, so the measures are generally trustworthy.
Reasonably so, yes. Now, in terms of what works to boost it, some recent evidence-based research, specifically a 2023 meta-analysis that used really high-quality criteria, found reasonably solid evidence for a couple of things. Gratitude interventions, like writing down things you're grateful for or expressing gratitude to someone, seem to work. And also, simply having conversations with strangers or increasing general sociability.
Talking to strangers makes you happier. Really?
The evidence suggests it can, yes. But here's a truly surprising finding from that same rigorous study.
Okay.
They found no convincing evidence that things like sports, mindfulness training, or taking walks in the countryside actually made people happier.
Wait, what? No effect from exercise or mindfulness or nature walks? That seems counterintuitive.
It is surprising, isn't it? It challenges a lot of common assumptions about well-being practices. Now, this doesn't mean those things aren't good for you in other ways, like physical health or stress reduction. But the direct causal link to increased happiness, according to this specific high-standard meta-analysis, wasn't strongly supported.
Wow, okay. That really makes you rethink some conventional wisdom. But setting aside those surprising findings, let's talk about the generally accepted positive effects of being happy. There are quite a few, right?
Oh, absolutely. Happiness consistently shows positive links with physical health. It even predicts longevity in healthy populations.
Living longer if you're happier.
The data points that way. And behaviorally, happier people tend to be more helpful, more attentive, more generous, both to others and actually to themselves, too. They tend to be more cooperative, less aggressive, more sociable, and better communicators.
So it makes you a better person to be around, basically.
It seems so. And beyond social aspects, happiness also seems to foster creative problem-solving, persistence when facing challenges, intrinsic motivation for tasks, meaning you enjoy the task itself, and more efficient decision-making.
Okay, so it's good for you, good for others, good for getting things done.
And here's a really intriguing point from Liebermersky, King, and Diner again. Their research suggests that happiness often precedes success, rather than just resulting from it.
Wait, happiness comes first.
Often, yes, in areas like income, relationships, marriage quality, work performance, even health. Conversely, low mood correlates strongly with negative outcomes. So happiness seems to act almost like a protective factor, a foundation that makes success more likely, rather than just being the prize at the end.
That flips the usual script, doesn't it? Be happy, then succeed.
It certainly challenges the "I'll be happy when" narrative.
Okay, now for the flip side. Can happiness actually have negative effects? Is it really possible to be too happy?
Well, according to psychologist June Gruber, it might be. She argues that experiencing happiness too intensely, or perhaps inappropriately, could potentially trigger negative outcomes. Things like increased sensitivity, maybe gullibility, potentially less success in certain contexts, and even a greater likelihood of engaging in high-risk behaviors.
High-risk behaviors, like feeling invincible.
Perhaps something like that, yeah. Overconfidence, maybe. Additionally, research by Iris Mouse suggests that the act of actively valuing or seeking happiness to an extreme degree can backfire. It can lead people to set overly high expectations for happiness and then feel disappointed or like a failure when they don't meet them.
So chasing it too hard makes it run away, like we discussed before.
Exactly. It seems the pursuit itself can be problematic if taken too far. One study even found that women who placed a higher value on happiness actually reacted less positively to happy emotions when they did experience them, possibly because they didn't meet those high expectations.
Wow.
And perhaps most importantly, linking back to balance, a 2012 study found that overall psychological well-being was actually higher for people who experienced a mix of both positive and negative emotions, rather than just constant positivity.
So we need the downs sometimes. Embracing the whole spectrum is healthier.
It suggests that accepting and navigating the full range of human emotions might be more conducive to genuine well-being than striving for perpetual bliss.
Okay, let's connect this to the bigger picture then. How does society, how does culture influence our happiness, or at least our pursuit of it? Are some societies just, better designed for happiness?
That's a huge question with significant implications. Historically, you had Bentham arguing public policy should aim to maximize happiness. And Thomas Jefferson famously included the pursuit of happiness in the U.S. Declaration of Independence, making it a foundational idea for a nation.
Right, it's right there in the founding documents.
Today, we generally see that richer nations tend to report higher average happiness levels. But, and this is crucial, the relationship between wealth and happiness isn't linear. A $1,000 increase in GDP has a much bigger impact on happiness in a poor nation than in an already wealthy one. There are diminishing returns.
Makes sense. Once basic needs are met, more money doesn't automatically equal much more happiness.
Exactly. And political scientists debate the best societal model for happiness. Is it a social democratic model with strong safety nets and equality? Or is it a system emphasizing economic freedom and individual opportunity? The evidence is complex and contested.
And beyond government structure, what about cultural values?
They play a massive role. For example, hedonism, the direct pursuit of pleasure, seems to be more strongly related to happiness in individualistic cultures, like many Western societies. Social structures matter too. Research shows unhappily married couples face significantly higher risks of depression, highlighting how relationship norms impact well-being.
So culture shapes what we value and how our relationships affect us.
Precisely. And one theory suggests maybe the higher subjective well-being often seen in richer countries isn't just about wealth, but perhaps also linked to their more individualistic cultures, potentially doing a better job of fulfilling those intrinsic psychological needs we talked about: autonomy, competence.
That's an interesting angle. This raises another question. How have these cultural views on happiness maybe changed over time? It's fascinating to think that, for instance, the intense Western focus on childhood happiness is actually pretty recent, really only emerging since the 19th century.
That's a great point. Our modern preoccupation with ensuring kids are constantly happy is historically novel. And crucially, we need to remember that not all cultures even seek to maximize personal happiness in the way Western cultures often do. Some cultures are even somewhat averse to expressing strong positive emotions.
Averse to happiness.
Or at least averse to prioritizing individual happiness above all else. For example, in many East Asian cultures, the focus might be more on happiness within relationships, on social harmony. Intense personal happiness might even be seen as potentially disruptive or selfish if it upsets group balance.
Wow, that's a fundamentally different perspective, prioritizing harmony over individual joy.
It highlights just how culturally constructed our ideas about the good life can be.
And what about religion? How do different faiths view happiness and its role in life?
Religion. The views are incredibly diverse, as you'd expect, yet many major traditions do place a significant emphasis on joy, bliss, or contentment, though often framed differently.
Okay, like how?
Well, in Buddhism, happiness, or maybe more accurately, freedom from suffering, is absolutely central. The ultimate goal is nirvana, the state of everlasting peace achieved by overcoming craving and cultivating positive qualities like loving kindness and compassion.
Okay.
Hinduism, particularly in traditions like Advaita Vedanta, sees Ananda, or bliss, as the ultimate nature of reality and the goal of life. Realizing your true self leads to profound happiness. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras also describe states of bliss achievable through practice.
And in Chinese thought?
The Confucian thinker Mencius talked about nourishing one's vital force, or qi, through righteous deeds. He believed this could lead to a kind of powerful, intoxicating joy.
Okay, what about the Abrahamic faiths?
In Judaism, simcha, which means gladness or joy, is considered really important, especially in the context of serving God. Psalm 100 says, "Serve the Lord with gladness." And Rabbi Nachman of Breslov famously taught that it's a great mitzvah, a commandment, to always be happy precisely so one can better serve God.
Interesting. Joy is a religious duty.
In a sense, yes. Christianity traditionally sees the ultimate end or goal as felicity or eudaimonia, this blessed happiness. Thomas Aquinas described it as the beatific vision, seeing the essence of God in the afterlife. While perfect happiness is reserved for the next life, Aquinas argued that an imperfect happiness can be found in this life through virtuous activity, both contemplative and active.
So a taste of it now, but the real deal is later.
That's the traditional view for many Christians, yes. And in Islam, the scholar Al-Ghazali wrote a very influential work called The Alchemy of Happiness. It's essentially a manual for living a spiritually fulfilling life, emphasizing inner purity, devotion, and remembrance of God as the path to true, lasting happiness, both here and hereafter.
So across many traditions, there's this link between spirituality, virtue, and some form of deep happiness or contentment.
Very much so, though the specifics vary greatly.
Okay, let's dive into some of the deep philosophical debates around happiness now. How does it connect with morality? Are happy people automatically good people or vice versa?
That's a classic question. The relationship between happiness and morality has been debated for millennia. Traditional European societies often did link happiness quite closely with morality, specifically with fulfilling your proper social role virtuously.
If you did your duty well, you'd be happy.
That was often the assumption. In moral philosophy itself, happiness is a tricky term. You see swings between defining morality based on its consequences for happiness, like utilitarianism does, and defining morality as something entirely separate from, or even opposed to, the pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
Interestingly, though, empirical research studies of ordinary people's judgments suggest that how happy we judge someone to be is often partly influenced by how moral we perceive them to be. We tend to think good people deserve to be happy, and maybe even are happier.
Huh. Our judgments blend the two.
It seems so. And reinforcing that connection, there's a large body of research showing that prosocial behavior, acting to help others, being kind, generous, can actually increase the happiness of the person doing the helping. Doing good feels good.
So there is a link, at least in that direction. Helping others boosts our own happiness.
The evidence for that is pretty strong, yes.
Now, how have ethicists argued for basing behavior on happiness? I'm thinking, again, of the utilitarians.
Right. Utilitarianism, championed by people like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, is built on the greatest happiness principle.
The greatest good for the greatest number.
Exactly. The idea is that actions are morally right if they tend to promote happiness, and wrong if they tend to produce unhappiness or pain, considering everyone affected. Mill famously defined happiness as pleasure and the avoidance of pain, but he was careful to distinguish higher human pleasures, intellect, feelings, imagination, moral sentiments, from purely lower bodily pleasures. He saw it in an Epicurean light, but focused on human flourishing.
Okay, maximizing the right kind of happiness for everyone.
That was the goal. But of course, this view had its critics. Thinkers like Thomas Carlyle or Ferdinand Tönnies, they pushed back hard. They argued that there's actually a greater happiness, a kind of heroic nobility, to be found in choosing to suffer for a just cause or for the sake of others.
Finding meaning in sacrifice again.
Exactly. A different kind of good life than just maximizing pleasure. And this connects directly back to the benefits of volunteerism we touched on earlier. That's a clear example of altruism, of choosing to give your time and effort for others. And the studies are remarkably consistent. Volunteers tend to have better health, higher life satisfaction, less depression and anxiety, and even live longer.
Longer life through volunteering.
One striking study found that older adults who volunteered for 2 or more organizations were 63% less likely to die over a 4-year period than non-volunteers, even after accounting for other health factors. It speaks volumes about the power of purpose and connection found in giving back.
That's incredible. Finding happiness, or at least well-being, through service. Okay, let's turn to some of the giants of philosophy. Aristotle. How did he see happiness? It was central for him, wasn't it?
Absolutely central. Aristotle talked about eudaimonia as the ultimate goal, the highest good for human beings. And again, while we often translate it as happiness, human flourishing, or living well, really captures it better.
Flourishing. Okay.
In his Nicomachean Ethics, he argues that eudaimonia is the only thing we desire purely for its own sake. Everything else, wealth, honor, health, even pleasure, we desire partly for themselves, but also because we think they will help us achieve eudaimonia.
So it's the ultimate end goal.
Yes. And crucially for Aristotle, eudaimonia isn't a feeling or a state you arrive at. It's an activity. It's about living virtuously, exercising your human capacities, especially reason, excellently throughout a complete life.
An activity, not a feeling. That's a key difference.
A huge difference. He uses his famous function argument. Just like a good knife is one that cuts well, a good human is one who performs the unique human function reasoning well. Living a life guided by reason, expressing virtue in your actions, that is the happy, flourishing life. Moral virtue is essential, though he considered the life of philosophical contemplation the absolute highest form.
Living well through virtuous action and reason.
That's the core of it. Happiness, for Aristotle, is always an end in itself, achieved through activity in accordance with virtue.
Okay, and then fast forward quite a bit. Friedrich Nietzsche, he had a, let's say, very different perspective on happiness, didn't he?
Oh, completely different. Nietzsche was deeply critical of the English utilitarians and their focus on maximizing happiness for the masses. He famously quipped, "Man does not strive for happiness, only the Englishman does."
Ouch. So what was his issue?
For Nietzsche, making happiness, especially the comfortable, content kind of happiness the utilitarians seemed to value, the ultimate goal of life, was, well, contemptible. He saw it as aiming too low. He yearned for a culture that embraced higher, harder, more challenging goals than mere happiness.
The higher goals like what?
Like creating great art, achieving self-mastery, overcoming limitations, embracing the struggles of life. He introduced his famous last man thought experiment.
The last man.
Yeah, these are his imagined people of the future who seek only comfort, security, and petty pleasures. They avoid all risk, all struggle, all suffering. They take no pride in anything, have no great aspirations. They just want to be comfortable and live long, healthy lives. Nietzsche presents them as the ultimate degradation of human potential.
Wow. A warning against prioritizing comfort above all else.
Exactly. Nietzsche wanted his readers to see the value, even the necessity, of difficulty, struggle, suffering, and yes, even unhappiness in creating anything of real worth. Great individuals, great cultures, even great philosophy itself. He believed that overcoming hardship is what makes us stronger and leads to deeper forms of fulfillment than simple contentment. It's a really stark, challenging contrast to the widespread pursuit of ease and comfort.
A completely different vision of a life well lived. Phew. What a deep dive that was into the concept of happiness. We've really journeyed all over the map, haven't we? From ancient definitions to modern measurements, looking at our genes, our psychology, exploring how cultures and philosophies shape our understanding, often in really surprising ways.
We really have, and I think what emerges is that happiness isn't this simple single thing at all. It's more like a rich, complex tapestry woven from fleeting experiences, deeper life appraisals, purposeful pursuits, and sometimes it's even found indirectly or through paths we wouldn't expect, like embracing challenges or serving others.
So after all that, what does this mean for you, our listener, thinking about your own life?
Well, maybe for your final thought, consider this. If happiness is both this momentary feeling and a longer-term appreciation of your life, and if even things like struggle and suffering can, as thinkers like Frankl and Nietzsche suggest, lead to profound meaning and a different kind of worth, how might recognizing this truly multifaceted nature of happiness change your own pursuit of it? Does it shift what you aim for or how you navigate the inevitable ups and downs? Something to ponder.